I was driving home late at night, alone on a desolate stretch of highway that cut through miles of dense forest. It was one of those roads where you could drive for ages without seeing another soul. No street lights, no houses, just the endless dark trees lining both sides. I had my high beams on, the only thing slicing through the blackness. The clock on my dashboard told me it was just past 1 a.m. I was about 30 minutes from home when I saw something ahead, right in the middle of my lane. I eased off the gas, narrowing my eyes to make sense of what I was looking at. It was a wheelchair, just sitting there, perfectly still, directly in my path. My heart started pounding. There was no one around, no car pulled over, no sign that someone had left it there for a reason. It wasn't toppled over either. It was upright, as if someone had carefully placed it in the road. I hesitated, debating whether I should get out and move it, but something about it didn't feel right. Instead, I steered into the oncoming lane and slowly maneuvered around it, my eyes flicking to my mirrors as I passed. Nothing. Just the wheelchair sitting motionless under my taillights. I exhaled, shook my head, and kept driving, telling myself that it was probably just dumped there for some bizarre reason. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I checked my mirrors again. The wheelchair was gone. I blinked hard. I knew I had just seen it, I had swerved around it, but now the road behind me was empty. My stomach tightened. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. I tried to focus on the drive, but about 5 minutes later, I saw something else. Up ahead, just on the edge of the road, there was a figure standing there. A man. He was positioned right at the tree line, his face barely illuminated by my headlights. He wasn't moving, just standing there, staring straight at the road. I felt an instinctive wave of unease. As I passed, I turned my head slightly, just enough to glance at him. He was wearing what looked like a hospital gown, the kind you see patients wear. His arms hung limply at his sides, and his head followed my car as I went by. I pressed down on the gas, watching him disappear into the darkness in my rearview mirror. I felt my pulse quicken. The wheelchair, the man in the hospital gown. I didn't believe in the paranormal, but something about this didn't sit right with me. I was alone on this road. There was no hospital anywhere nearby. No reason for someone like that to be standing out here in the middle of nowhere. I shook off the feeling and kept going. But it wasn't over. Another 10 minutes passed, and then I saw it again. The wheelchair, sitting in the middle of my lane. My blood ran cold. There was no way, no possible way it could be here again. I swerved around it, gripping the wheel tight, my breath coming faster. I didn't dare check my mirrors this time. I just drove. My mind was racing. Was someone messing with me? Was it the man in the hospital gown? How was it possible for the wheelchair to appear twice, miles apart, on a road I hadn't turned off from? I didn't get the chance to figure it out. A second later, my headlights caught something else up ahead. A car, a sedan, pulled over on the shoulder with its hazard lights blinking. I slowed, debating whether I should stop. I didn't want to. I was freaked out enough already. But what if someone actually needed help? As I got closer, I saw movement. Someone was inside, slumped over the steering wheel. My stomach knotted. I rolled down my window just a crack and called out, "Hey, are you okay?" No response. I gripped the wheel. Something told me to leave, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was hurt. Against my better judgment, I put the car in park and reached for my phone. That's when I saw it. In the darkness, just beyond the car, the man in the hospital gown was standing in the trees, watching me. I froze. My breath hitched. He was closer now, only a few yards away, and this time he wasn't alone. Beside him, more figures stood among the trees, silent, motionless. A dozen of them, all wearing hospital gowns, their faces obscured by the shadows of the branches. My skin crawled. A clicking sound broke the silence. My eyes darted back to the sedan. The person inside had moved. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I threw my car into drive and slammed my foot down on the gas. My tires screeched against the pavement as I sped away, my heart hammering against my ribs. I didn't look in the mirrors. I didn't want to see if they were still watching me. I drove straight home, locked every door, and sat awake until the sun came up. The next morning, I checked the news, expecting to see something, an accident, a missing person, anything. But there was nothing. No reports of a stranded car, no strange figures on the road, no wheelchair. But I know what I saw, and I know without a doubt that whatever was out there that night, it wasn't human. Driving long haul, you see things, strange things. At first, you brush it off. Your mind plays tricks on you in the dead of night, especially when it's just you, the hum of the engine, and the empty highway stretching into nothingness. But some things stick with you, things you know were real, things you wish you hadn't seen. This happened to me 3 years ago, somewhere along Highway 93 in Nevada. A lonely stretch of road cutting through the desert, miles from anything. It was past midnight and the world around me was swallowed in black. No moon, no stars, just the glow of my dashboard and the twin beams of my headlights carving a path through the void. I was hauling a refrigerated load up to Idaho, running on too little sleep and too much caffeine, when I saw it, something up ahead, just barely caught in the reach of my high beams. A man standing in the middle of the highway. He wasn't waving. He wasn't trying to flag me down. He just stood there, motionless, head slightly tilted, watching as my truck bore down on him. My stomach clenched. I hit the horn, but he didn't move. No reaction, no flinch, just staring. I eased off the gas, ready to swerve if I had to, but then, just before I reached him, he took a single step back, vanishing into the darkness beyond my lights. Gone. I passed the spot where he had been, gripping the wheels so tight my knuckles ached. My heart was hammering in my chest. I flicked my eyes to the side mirror, half expecting to see him there, running after me. But there was nothing, just empty road stretching behind me. I shook it off. A drifter, maybe. Someone high out of his mind, playing a dangerous game. I kept driving, but then, a mile up the road, I saw him again. Same stance, same tilt of the head, same dead stare locked onto my truck. I slammed the horn harder this time, my pulse spiking. It was impossible. No one could have gotten there that fast. No car, no lights, no way for him to have moved ahead of me. And yet, there he was. I didn't slow down this time. I kept my foot steady on the pedal, heart pounding, breath tight in my throat. Just as before, at the last possible moment, he took a step back and disappeared into the dark. I checked my mirrors. Nothing. The road behind me was just as empty as before. I felt sick, the kind of sick that settles deep in your bones, an instinctual wrongness you can't shake. My hands were sweating against the wheel. I needed to get off that highway, find a truck stop, anything, but the next rest area wasn't for another 30 miles. Then, just as I was trying to steady my breathing, my CB radio crackled to life. A voice came through, distorted and thin. "He's up ahead." I nearly swerved off the road. I hadn't touched my radio. The dial was still turned low, and I hadn't heard another trucker for over an hour. My throat went dry. Before I could respond, the voice came through again, quieter this time. "Don't stop." I turned the volume up, my pulse in my ears. "Who is this?" Nothing but static. Then, just as I was processing that, My headlights swept over the road ahead, and my stomach dropped. The man was there again. But this time he wasn't alone. There were 3 of them now, all standing in the road, spaced apart, facing me, perfectly still, perfectly silent, watching. A wave of cold fear slammed into me. I had nowhere to go. There was no shoulder, no other lane, just open desert and miles of nothing. I gritted my teeth, clenched the wheel, and did the only thing I could. I held my speed. They didn't move. I barreled toward them, bracing for impact, ready for the sickening crunch of bodies against my grill. But at the very last second, they stepped back, one by one, slipping into the dark like shadows dissolving in the night. My truck roared past them. My entire body was shaking. I didn't check the mirrors this time. I didn't want to see if they were there, watching me go. I drove for another hour before I finally spotted the lights of a rest stop. I pulled in fast, my nerves shot, my skin clammy with sweat. There were a few other trucks parked in the lot, their drivers tucked away in their cabs, asleep and unaware of whatever the hell was out there on the road. I killed the engine, locked my doors, and sat there in the silence, heart pounding in my ears. My fingers hovered over the CB, hesitating before I finally pressed the button. "Whoever talked to me back there," I said, voice unsteady. "Thanks." A few seconds passed, then that same crackling static. "They don't like the lights." My stomach twisted. I gripped the mic tighter. "Who are they?" Silence. Then, just before the transmission cut out completely, I heard one last thing. A whisper, barely audible over the static. "They walk at night." I've been a truck driver for years, and I've had my fair share of long, lonely nights on the road. This happened last winter on a stretch of highway cutting through a rural part of the state. Snow had been falling for hours, covering the roads in a thick, powdery blanket. It wasn't the worst storm I'd seen, but it made driving slow and exhausting. I had a long haul that night, a delivery 2 states away. Around midnight, I pulled into a rest stop, one of those small, desolate lots off the highway with just a couple of dim lights and no building, just a place to park for a while. I planned to rest my eyes for a bit before continuing. There was only one other vehicle in the lot, a black pickup truck parked at the far end. Its engine was off and no one was around, at least that I could see. I cut the engine, reclined my seat, and let out a deep breath. The only sound was the wind howling outside and the occasional creak of my truck as it settled in the cold. I don't know how long I had my eyes closed before I heard it, a soft crunching noise, like footsteps in the snow. At first, I thought maybe it was the wind shifting the ice, but then it came again. Slow, deliberate steps approaching my truck. I cracked my eyes open and glanced at the side mirror. At first, I saw nothing but darkness, but then movement. A figure was standing just behind my truck, barely visible in the dim light. My stomach tightened. I stayed completely still, watching, waiting. The figure moved closer. I could see now that it was a man dressed in a dark coat, hood pulled up over his head. He wasn't walking toward the door, but instead circling my truck, stopping every few seconds. It was like he was looking for something, or listening. I reached for the door lock, double-checking it was secure. My heart was pounding now. I didn't know what he wanted, but something about the way he moved felt wrong, like he wasn't lost or looking for help. He was waiting. Then suddenly, he was gone. I blinked, scanning the mirrors. Nothing. The snow-covered lot was empty again, except for that black pickup truck at the far end. My breath came out in shaky clouds. Maybe he'd just been a drifter, someone looking for a ride or shelter from the cold. I was about to lean back again when I noticed something. In the fresh layer of snow outside my truck, There were no footprints leading away, just the ones circling my truck. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I checked the mirrors again, this time my rear view, and my blood ran cold. The man was standing directly behind my trailer, just far enough back that I wouldn't have seen him unless I was looking for him. I started the engine immediately. The moment my lights flicked on, the figure darted out of view. I didn't waste any time. I put the truck into gear and pulled out of the rest stop, my tires crunching over the snow. In my side mirror, I caught one last glimpse of the lot as I merged back onto the highway. The black pickup truck's headlights switched on. The pickup followed me. I kept my eyes on the road, pretending not to notice, but I could feel it back there, matching my speed. No signals, no attempts to pass, just lurking behind me, its headlights dim. This went on for miles. At one point, I merged into the other lane, but the pickup did the same. I sped up slightly. It did too. I wasn't sure what to do. I could call the police, but out here, I didn't know how long it would take for someone to respond. I decided to test something. I signaled, pretending to take the next exit ramp, slowing as if I were going to pull off. The pickup hesitated, then started to follow. But at the last second, I swerved back onto the highway. The pickup swerved too, but a little too late. I watched as it had to commit to the exit, disappearing from my view. Relief washed over me, but only for a moment. I knew that road. It was a dead-end exit leading to an old service road. If they wanted to follow me again, they'd have to backtrack onto the highway. I took the next real exit and pulled into a well-lit gas station, my hands shaking as I gripped the wheel. I waited there for a while, sipping a coffee inside, watching the road through the window. But the black pickup never showed again. Maybe they had given up. Maybe they hadn't expected me to trick them. Or maybe they were just waiting for the next driver to stop at that rest area. I finished my coffee, took a deep breath, and got back on the road. I never saw that truck again. But ever since that night, I make sure to park only at the big, busy truck stops. Because out there on the highway in the dead of night, you never really know who or what might be watching. I had just turned 17 when I got a job delivering for a small local restaurant. It wasn't a pizza place, but we still had our fair share of takeout orders that needed delivering, and I liked the solitude of driving around at night, listening to music and getting paid for it. One Friday night, I got a delivery late in my shift. It was a small order, just a sandwich and a side of fries. But the location was far out in the rural part of town, where houses were spaced out and roads had no streetlights. It wasn't unusual, but it always made me a little uneasy. I didn't like being so far from everything, especially at night. I grabbed the bag, checked the address, and started driving. The restaurant was in the busier part of town, but as I made my way toward the delivery spot, the houses became fewer, and the trees got thicker. The GPS guided me down a long, narrow road lined with dense woods. I noticed that I hadn't seen another car for several minutes, which wasn't unheard of this late at night, but it made me feel strangely isolated. Finally, I spotted the mailbox with the correct number and turned onto the driveway. It was long, unpaved, and covered with scattered leaves and dirt. My headlights barely cut through the thick darkness, and I could just make out the outline of a small, single-story house at the end of the drive. I parked and grabbed the food, heading toward the porch. The house was dark except for the porch light, which flickered slightly. No movement inside, no sound. I knocked on the door and waited. Seconds passed. I knocked again, a little louder this time. A full minute went by before I heard movement inside. Footsteps. Then the door creaked open slightly. A woman stood there, peering at me through the narrow gap. She was older than I expected, maybe mid-50s, wearing a robe and slippers. Her expression was tense. I held up the food. "Delivery for this address." She frowned. "I didn't order anything." I double-checked the receipt. The address was correct. "Are you sure?" "Maybe someone else in the house?" I asked. She shook her head. "I live alone." I felt a slight chill run through me. This wasn't right. I muttered an apology, backed away, and turned toward my car, trying to figure out what had happened. A prank? A mistake? Then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. At the end of the driveway, just past my car, there was another vehicle. A black sedan, engine running, parked at an angle on the road. Its headlights were off, but I could see the faint glow of its tail lights in the dark. Had it been there before? I took a few more steps toward my car, and as I did, the sedan's front doors opened. Two men stepped out, their silhouettes barely visible against the darkness. They didn't say anything. They just stood there, watching. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I suddenly felt exposed, like prey in the open. I quickened my pace, reaching my car, but as I went to unlock it, I heard more movement. I turned my head slightly and saw that the men were now walking toward me. Not running, but moving with purpose, their faces still obscured by the darkness. Panic set in. I yanked the car door open, jumped inside, and slammed the lock down just as one of them broke into a run. I fumbled for the ignition, my hands shaking, and started the car. The man reached my window and pounded on it with his fist. His face was partially covered by a hood, but I could see his mouth twisted into a snarl. I didn't wait to see what he wanted. I threw the car into reverse, my tires kicking up dirt and gravel, and tore out of the driveway. As I sped down the road, I saw the sedan's headlights flick on in my rearview mirror. They were following me. I pressed down on the gas, my heart hammering. The road was narrow, winding, and surrounded by trees. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to get away. The sedan stayed close, its engine roaring as it closed the distance. I was going nearly 60, my tires skidding slightly on the loose gravel, but they weren't letting up. Then I saw it, a side road up ahead. Without thinking, I yanked the wheel and swerved onto it, my car bouncing as it hit the rough terrain. I killed my headlights and drove blind, heart pounding. I could still hear the other car speeding past the turn behind me. I held my breath, waiting. A few seconds later, I saw their brake lights flicker in the distance. They had realized I was gone. The car slowed, then stopped. I sat there, gripping the wheel, barely breathing. The sedan idled for a moment, then turned around and slowly drove back the way it came. I didn't move for several minutes, my hands still locked on the steering wheel. When I finally felt safe enough, I turned my lights back on and drove home, my entire body shaking. I never found out who they were or what they wanted. The next day, I told my manager about the order, but there was no record of it. No payment, no phone number, nothing. It was as if the order had never existed. But I know it did, and whoever placed it wasn't expecting food. Driving late at night was usually easy money. Fewer passengers, quieter roads, and just enough eerie emptiness to remind me I was alone. I'd been at it for a while, mostly airport runs, bar pickups, and the occasional odd request. But that night was different. It started with a normal ride request. A guy needed a lift from a diner on the outskirts of town to a neighborhood way out past the suburbs. The kind of place where streetlights were a luxury and houses sat far apart, swallowed by fields and trees. When I pulled up, he was already outside, standing just beyond the glow of the diner's neon sign. Dark jeans, dark hoodie, head slightly down. He slid into the back seat without a word. "Hey, how's your night?" I asked. A pause, then quietly, "Fine." That was it. No small talk, no eye contact. Just the sound of the engine and the GPS calling out turns. Fine by me. Some passengers didn't like to talk, and I didn't need the company. I just wanted to finish the ride and head home. The farther we drove, the quieter it got. The city lights faded, replaced by long stretches of nothing. Just trees, cracked pavement, and the occasional mailbox standing alone in the dark. My phone flickered, low signal. Not unusual this far out, but still. Then something felt off. I glanced at the rearview mirror. My passenger was staring straight ahead, rigid. Not at his phone, not out the window, just forward. The kind of stillness that made my skin crawl. "Not much out here," I said, just to break the tension. No response. I turned my eyes back to the road. A few more miles to go. Then, up ahead, I saw it. Headlights. A car parked on the side of the road. No hazards, no movement. Just sitting there in the dark. As I got closer, I slowed slightly, trying to see inside. Nothing. Windows too dark to make out anything. Just as I passed, its headlights flicked on. The engine roared to life, and then it pulled out. Fast. Right behind me. I kept driving, pretending not to notice. Maybe it was just coincidence, someone heading home. But my gut told me otherwise. A minute passed, then another. The car stayed close, too close. I checked the mirror again. My passenger hadn't moved, but his hands were clenched together now, fingers locked. The road stretched empty ahead. No turns, no exits, just miles of darkness. The car behind me edged closer. My heart started to pound. Then, without warning, the car swerved into the other lane, right beside me. For a few seconds, we drove side by side. I refused to look, staring straight ahead, my fingers tightening on the wheel. Then, as if deciding something, the car slowed and fell back behind me again. I exhaled, realizing I'd been holding my breath. Then my passenger spoke for the first time since getting in. "Don't stop." His voice was low, calm, but there was something else in it. Urgency, like he knew something I didn't. I didn't ask. I just kept driving. The car behind us inched closer again. My pulse thumped in my ears. Then my passenger leaned forward just slightly. "When I say turn, you turn. Fast." I didn't argue, didn't even look at him. Just focused on the road, waiting. Seconds stretched, thick with tension. The headlights behind us flared, gaining fast. "Now!" I yanked the wheel hard, veering onto an old dirt road I hadn't even noticed. My tires skidded, gravel spraying as I fought to keep control. I didn't dare slow down. The headlights disappeared. For a moment, nothing but trees and the sound of my own breathing. Then a distant roar of an engine. The car was coming back, faster. "We need to get out of sight," my passenger muttered. Up ahead, the road split, one way into more trees, the other toward a dried-up riverbed. Without thinking, I took the trees, killing my headlights as I did. We rolled to a stop, hidden in the shadows. Silence. Then the other car blasted past the fork, missing us by seconds. Its taillights disappeared into the distance. I didn't move, just listened to the ticking of the engine, my own ragged breathing. My passenger exhaled. Then, finally, he spoke. "You need to take me back." "What?" My voice came out hoarse. "Back to the diner. Now." I should have questioned it. Should have demanded to know what the hell just happened. But something about his tone told me not to ask. I turned the car around and headed back. We didn't speak. Not when we reached the main road. Not when we passed the spot where the other car had been. Not until I pulled up to the diner. The neon sign buzzed faintly, washing the lot in red light. He opened the door, pausing just before stepping out. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, "You should take a different way home." Then he was gone. I didn't stay, didn't wait to see where he went. I took his advice, driving a completely different route back. But as I pulled onto my street, my stomach twisted. Parked a few houses down, barely visible in the darkness. A car, not running, no lights, just waiting. And as I drove past, I swear I saw movement inside. A figure shifting just enough to let me know they saw me too.